Welcome to Behind the Mic, where the subjects are audiobooks and the actors who narrate them. I'm Jo Reed, and with me is contributor Alan Minskoff. Hello, Alan.
Hi, Jo.
First time us talking this year, so I guess Happy New Year, even though it's February.
It has been a good new year, and the books that I've been reading are quite good this year.
I know the three you're going to talk about, and they're three powerhouses, so why don't you share?
Yes, this is Fame Meter Day. We're going to start with Dead and Alive by the inimitable Zadie Smith, and it's read by the author. And then we're going to move on to Venetian Vespers by John Banville, and it's read by Luke Thompson. And finally, Shadow Ticket by Thomas Pynchon, read by Edoardo Ballerini.
All right, so Dead and Alive, written and read by Zadie Smith. Tell us a bit about this.
It is a book of essays. It is quite varied. And of course, Smith is a good reader. She's a Brit, although she's taught for many years at NYU. She's back in London now. And she's a good, clear reader. She's an eloquent writer, and she narrates with assurance. And she clearly is a very practiced reader and lecturer.
Well, her narration of her novel, The Fraud, was extraordinary. I mean, her ability to take on character voices and the way she delivered her book was really phenomenal. This is a book of essays. Are they disparate essays? Is there a theme?
They are disparate, but I should mention that in the foreword, she gives you a hint at how she approaches this book of essays. She says she acts as both a host and a guest. And it's important that she says this because in this group of essays, there are quite a few on art and artists. She has a long and very powerful essay on Celia Paul, who was the mother of two of Lucian Freud's children. And there's a lot about Lucian Freud as well.
And Celia Paul was an artist herself.
And a talented artist as well. She was also later, she was famous long after she and Freud were no longer an item.
Well, how old was she? 18? He was, 50-something?
Yes, there was this huge difference in their ages. What I love about Zadie Smith is she's among the fairest writers. She will talk about an issue, say, Israel or Ukraine, and she's very balanced how she does it. What I loved, however, and I don't want to miss this, is she did eulogies to the English writer Hilary Mantel, to the great Nobel Prize winner Toni Morrison, and Philip Roth, who she knew, as well as Joan Didion, who she didn't know, but was highly influenced by.
I listened to a lot of this book, and I feel like she really grapples with ideas. And in prose, that's very accessible and often very elegant. And she's an honest writer, too, I think.
What was fascinating to me is she goes back to her early life. I had no idea that she was a television binger, that she had a weight issue. And of course, I think she's married to a poet. And she talks about their life now where they have a library of 10,000 books, if you can imagine that. It gives you an insight into how she is and how she lives. She's exceptionally unafraid to test ideas and share her opinions, and she really bears her soul.
Well, why don't we hear a little bit of it? Do you have to set this up?
She talks about what it was like as a writer. One of the reasons she goes to see art is she can carry one of her little babies with her, because she was a mom of two, and at various times she went to see art, not only because she loved art, because she could pack her little one with her. And this kind of talks about her initial going to see art.
This is Dead and Alive, written and read by Zadie Smith.
There should be a more practical arm of literary theory, one that takes into account the realities of women's lives. I had my first child in 2009. It didn't take long to figure out that looking at art requires neither both your hands nor silence. That it can be done swiftly, between playground and nap time, and that you can be very tired looking at art. Sometimes a fugue state even helps. Whereas if you're trying to breastfeed your baby to sleep, any attempt at simultaneous page turning will wake them. Even if you transition to a silent Kindle, the contrast between the piecemeal, necessarily time-consuming practice of reading and the all-encompassing, instantaneous moment of looking will be stark.
This is a wonderful introduction, and it sets up such an interesting comparison between visual art and reading.
I think I'd be remiss if I didn't also mention that she does a lot of writing about what it's like to be a Black British author and how that could be differentiated from being a Black author in America, which we don't always think about. But she's exceptionally honest. And I think I mentioned before that she really bears her soul, or I should have mentioned that she really bears her soul. Like her novels, which I have enjoyed as well, there's a truth-telling to her, how she uses words and language.
I completely agree. I found as I was listening, I actually prefer to read essays than listen to them because while I love footnotes, and when I read, I am a real footnote reader, it kept breaking up when she would say footnote, and go down to the footnote, or quoting, it would be quote, something, 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 unquote. And I found that took me out of the reading of it. I don't know if you found that as well.
I thought it was a little disconcerting. I think she's also such a fine storyteller, like going back into her youth. I did not expect that. Frankly, before I read it, I thought it'd be more about she's such a writer about literature and she's such a thinker about writing. But I think that you make a good point. It is a little disconcerting, footnote, colon, and then what she says, and it's over.
Yeah. But I loved her essay on the film Tar, too. I thought that was a really, really good one.
Oh, it was excellent.
Are there any others that stood out for you?
The one on Black Manhattan, I thought was very, very fine. I love her memory as a teacher as well. As somebody who teaches, I love listening to her talk about teaching. And of course, she's now not teaching, so she has a perspective.
She sure does. I wonder how you listened. It's different than listening to a novel, for example. Do you listen to essay after essay after essay, or do you listen to an essay and then put it down for a bit and do something else?
I do put it down for a bit. After Tar, I needed a break because I thought that was such a fascinating piece. And she's terrific with visual images, as she was with Tar and the art. She really she's a great describer of how things look. And although Tar was a lot about the character and the meaning of that character, and also the extraordinary performance.
Great writer. Okay, so Zadie Smith, Dead and Alive. It's always a happy day when she has another book we can listen to and or read. And what about Venetian Vespers by John Banville, read by Luke Thompson? What a good book.
Really a good book. And it's a book that kind of breaks out of the tradition in that, I mean, you have Luke Thompson, who's the Bridgerton heartthrob, and he's a terrific reader with a really strong voice. We gave this an Earphones Award. But most importantly, Banville can set up a complex situation. For example, the narrator protagonist is a thoroughly unlikable character. He's not somebody that you really feel for, although he goes through a lot. But he's not a likable guy. He's very full of himself.
Let's backtrack for a second. Give us a summary of what this is about.
I'm so sorry. This is set, it's a fin de siècle books at the end of the 19th into the 20th century, and it's about a kind of a failed writer who marries well. And it's really not even of his own doing. He's kind of on a late honeymoon in Venice. Venice is kind of a character in this. And it is the Venice of heat. It is the Venice of miasma. It is the Venice that is like a tricky place in the world where you can get tricked.
I kind of felt when I was listening to this, it was like Henry James meets Patricia Highsmith.
I think you are right. He, of course, would much rather be Henry James, but the character's name is Evelyn Dolman, and he's a morally ambiguous soul. He goes to Italy, and here's what you do feel for him. He goes to Italy, he knows no Italian. He's never been there. His recent bride is an American heiress who's kind of cool to him, and she is very familiar with this place. She spent a lot of time in Italy. She's fluent in the language, and his undoing, the unspooling of his character and his fate is kind of the subject that is so brilliantly dealt with by Banville.
And Banville, of course, is one of the great writers in the modern era. And he also writes crime fiction as Benjamin Black.
Yes, well, and of course there's a little crime in this too. He's very good with the sinister.
Oh, God. And this is a disturbing book. Yes, he is
No
very
question.
good with the sinister.
I mean, there's a pair of twins who are as perfidious as the day is long. They're colorful, they're adept, and they truly fool Dolman. And it's one of those books that, you could see where Banville had this idea, I'm going to start at the end and then have him run through it.
And I thought Luke Thompson was so good.
Oh, he's remarkable.
Because our protagonist, Evelyn, has these long, long sentences. I mean, not only is he the narrator and observer, but he uses language to obfuscate. And he's a writer.
He does, and he's a writer, and he's not even though he would like to see himself in the pantheon of great English writers, he knows that he's not, that he hasn't that kind of success. But I want to go back to Luke Thompson for a second.
Yeah, that's where I was going, because what I was going to say, the thing about Luke Thompson is that Luke Thompson never loses the thread of that sentence, and he just keeps you immersed in it, even as it's going on and on. He's just a really powerful narrator.
Well, and it's a remarkable job because he narrates with restraint. He lets this kind of self-deluded man, he gives him a veracity and style, tone, and delivery. And that's what makes this such a surprising and startlingly good audiobook. Because even though you don't love him, you are listening to him. It's his story. And and it does have the gloss of wrongdoing. Let's face it, at the end, I won't say with it at the end.
Thank you. Excuse me, we're not doing that.
I'm so sorry. Well, let me just leave the gloss of wrongdoing in the mist and the heat of Venice.
Yes, I would agree. Why don't we hear a little bit now? Set this up for us.
This is where he introduces himself, and it's a very important paragraph or two.
All right. This is Venetian Vespers, written by John Banville and read by Luke Thompson.
Dolman is the name. Evelyn Dolman. I am by trade a man of letters. You might have heard of me in my day, for I had a middling reputation in the period coming to be known in our increasingly Frenchified age as the fin de siècle, that is, the 1890s. I choose the word trade deliberately. I wrote books, stories, plays, and much journalism besides, with the simple and express purpose of establishing a reputation in the world and making a living from it. If I was successful, however moderately, it wasn't through inspiration, whatever that may be, but by dint of rigid application and dedicated labour.
He's a tricky protagonist, that Evelyn.
He is a tricky protagonist. And, you really want to like him and understand his story. He's kind of like chin out, I'm ready to be hit. And you really don't get to know the brilliance of Banville. You really don't get to interact with the wife, who you see totally from Evelyn's point of view.
Correct. And I think for a book that is a bit gothic, is very disturbing, has this air of mystery, I think Luke Thompson really provides the perfect pacing for it.
I think he does too. And we, of course, know who Luke Thompson is. He's the Bridgerton heartthrob. That's the Luke Thompson we're talking about. This is not some other Luke Thompson. This is the television star Luke Thompson.
But he's also narrated more than a few audiobooks, including The Brothers Karamazov.
Oh, right. He's a, let's be very honest, he's an extraordinary audiobook narrator, and as some actors are, and he is one of them. I mean, I would love to hear him do Dickens.
Oh, yes. That would be great.
If somebody's listening to us who could make that happen, it would be wonderful to hear him do Dickens. He's so good with language. And your point is one that I think overwhelms everything else. He really allows this very long-winded narrator to have his say. And at that time you've heard it all, you really get it. This is why Banville is a extraordinary writer.
And speaking of extraordinary writers, now we're moving to Shadow Ticket, written by Thomas Pynchon and narrated by Edoardo Ballerini. What can we say? It's Pynchon's first novel in 12 years, and it's read by Edoardo Ballerini, who is one of the great narrators.
What is so unique about Pynchon, who we must say is a recluse. He is unknown to almost everyone, but his prose is not reclusive. In fact, this is a noir novel. This is set in Milwaukee in the 30s. I would describe Ballerini as extravagantly gifted, is that he does every voice. He slows up, he speeds up, his tone shifts. He can portray a thug, a torch singer, an English elite, Hungarians, Germans, and his vocals are just always spot on. He's remarkable.
I completely agree. This is an interesting book. It's kind of a caper, sort of. I'll let you describe it more in a summary. But I kept thinking of Dashiell Hammett with this one.
I did too. I really felt this is a 30s noir. And the protagonist, the main character, is named Hicks McTaggart. He's a former strikebreaker who becomes a private eye, but unfortunately runs afoul of the Milwaukee mob. And we see him, first takes off to the East Coast, and then ultimately much of this remarkable audiobook takes place in Europe. And so you run into Eastern European fascists, motorcycle gangs, British spies. There's a fascinating character who plays the klezmer. And you really get a sense of the 30s as closing up intellectually. Then the prejudice is there and it's palpable. But McTaggart begins, he's a real kind of one of those characters like from a black and white movie. He is a private eye. He likes the ladies. He's a good dancer. And the atmosphere is so rich. You really feel like you've walked right into a 1930s black and white movie with a gumshoe and lots of thugs, but it's very witty. I mean, for example, much of this circuitous story revolves around locating a cheese heiress who is the daughter of the quote unquote Al Capone of cheese.
And it's very funny at a point in the book where the Al Capone of cheese meets Al Capone, who says, "Yeah, I'm the Al Capone of Al Capone."
I mean, only Pynchon can get away with some of this stuff. I mean, it is so witty.
And I thought that Edoardo had so much fun doing it, and I loved listening to him.
I think that we wouldn't want to leave the listeners without the joy that he brings to reading this. I mean, it's almost like he sat back and said, I'm glad you gave this to me because I get to do a Hungarian accent, which is not easy, a German accent, I get to talk like a mob guy, and I get to be a torch singer, and he does them all.
Yes, and there are songs in here.
In your mind's eye, you get the picture of McTaggart, who's both a tough guy, who's a strikebreaker, but he also loves to dance. He also goes dancing, and he's a romancer. He's very much like right out of the pages of Dashiell Hammett.
Why don't we hear a little bit? Set this up for us.
He's introducing himself. This is where Hicks McTaggart introduces Hicks McTaggart.
This is Shadow Ticket, written by Thomas Pynchon, narrated by Edoardo Ballerini.
When trouble comes to town, it usually takes the North Shore line. What with tough times down the lake in Chicago, changes in the wind, Prohibition repeal just around the corner, Big Al and the federal pokey in Atlanta, outfit affairs grown jumpy and unpredictable, anybody needing an excuse to get out of town in a hurry comes breezing up here to Milwaukee, where it seldom gets more serious than somebody stole somebody's fish.
Ugh, just a marvelous book. And he was so good. As you said, he takes on the voices and cadences of gangsters, strikers, cops, the demi-monde. It is such an extraordinary array of voices that he brings to this book and really manifests, I think, what Pynchon wrote.
It is, of course, an Earphones Award winner, and rightly so. I mean, there are very few narrators who can do this breadth of character.
Yeah, it's a great book, and it's beautifully, beautifully narrated. Okay, that's Shadow Ticket, written by Thomas Pynchon, narrated by Edoardo Ballerini. You had a great week.
I had wonderful material. Let's be completely clear.
Well, Alan, I look forward to talking to you next month.
And I do too. Thank you so much.
Okay. Behind the Mic drops on Thursdays, and if you follow us, we'll simply appear in your feed. And while you're at it, follow Fully Booked by Kirkus Reviews. Fully Booked is the podcast for book lovers. Every Tuesday, Kirkus editors and host Megan LaBreeze brings you author interviews, industry insights, and recommendations from the bookseller list. Find your next great book on Fully Booked by Kirkus Reviews. And you can follow Fully Booked and Behind the Mic on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, or wherever you get your podcasts. And stop by kirkusreviews.com to check out reviews for both print and audiobooks. Behind the Mic is produced by Jessica Lockhart. Michelle Cobb, Stephen Cummings, Leslie Fine, Alan Minskoff, Alex Ritchie, Laura Rossi, and Kendra Winchester are our contributors. Jennifer Dell is our editor, with assistance from Alicia Langerman. And Tom Beer is the executive producer. The music is William Ross Chernoff's Nomads 4-Way. And I'm your host, Joe Reed. Good listening.